Hello guys, welcome to Biology Made Easy. This is Miss Natasha and I'm going to take you through today's topic. So today we are going to look at the chemicals of life. We are going to look at their properties and their functions. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. The body is made up of many different kinds of chemicals, and each of these chemicals is essential for life. These chemicals include water, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. The first one we are going to look at is water. So water makes up almost 75% of the human body weight. This means that water makes up a huge part of our body. The constituent elements of water are hydrogen and oxygen, and the molecular formula for water is H2O. This means that water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Moving on to the properties of water. Water is transparent. We can see through water, and under normal circumstances, water is odorless. Water also has a high heat capacity, and water is a solvent. Water being a solvent means that many substances can dissolve in water. Moving on to the functions of water. Water is used during photosynthesis in plants. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their own food, and during this process, plants use water. Water is also used as a solvent for many chemical reactions because a lot of substances dissolve in it. Water can also be used as a reagent. Water is a habitat for many aquatic animals, and water is used for transporting substances around the body. So the liquid part of blood that is called plasma contains a lot of water, and substances like glucose can be dissolved in plasma. So after they are dissolved in plasma, they are transported around the body to the areas where they are needed. Water also lubricates moving parts, and water can be used to get rid of waste products. So waste products in the body are dissolved in water, and this comes out in the form of urine. Our next essential chemicals are carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And carbohydrates include starch, glucose, sucrose, and many other sugars. The simplest kind of carbohydrates are the simple sugars, which are also known as monosaccharides, for example, glucose. So the molecular formula for glucose is C6H12O6. This means that glucose is made up of 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. So glucose is made up of 6 carbon atoms joined together in a ring with hydrogen and oxygen. We can see in this diagram the structure of a glucose molecule. A glucose molecule is made up of 6 carbon atoms, so we can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And these carbon atoms are joined together in a ring with oxygen and hydrogen atoms. So this is the structure of a glucose molecule. Simple sugars are soluble in water and they taste sweet. When 2 simple sugar molecules are joined together, a larger molecule that is called a disaccharide is formed. For example, if we join one glucose molecule to another glucose molecule, we form maltose. So maltose is the disaccharide. Disaccharides are soluble in water and they taste sweet. And when many simple sugar molecules are joined together, a large molecule that is called a polysaccharide is formed. For example, if we join many glucose molecules, we form starch. So starch is the polysaccharide. Polysaccharides are insoluble in water and they do not taste sweet. Moving on to the functions of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates provide energy. They are used in respiration, and glucose is the most common sugar that is used to produce energy. So the cells in the body use glucose to release the energy that is needed to carry out life processes. Plants also use glucose because plants also respire. So carbohydrates can also be used to make cell walls in plants. So plants store carbohydrates in the form of starch, and animals store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen. This means that in animals, when there are excess carbohydrates, those carbohydrates are converted to glycogen and they are stored in the form of glycogen. And in plants, the carbohydrates are stored in the form of starch. So in general, plants store carbohydrates in the form of starch and animals store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen. Our next essential chemicals are proteins. So proteins are made up of small molecules that are called amino acids. These amino acids are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes sulfur. So amino acids are joined together to form the polypeptides or proteins. So there are 20 different types of amino acids, and any of these 20 amino acids can be joined together in any order to make protein molecules. In this diagram, we can see the structure of a protein molecule and the structure of an amino acid molecule. So this is an amino acid molecule, and as we mentioned, it contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And this is a small protein molecule which is made up of amino acid molecules that are joined together in a chain. So this is the structure of a protein molecule, and this is the structure of an amino acid molecule. Moving on to the functions of proteins. So proteins can be used for transporting substances around the body. For example, hemoglobin, which is the red pigment in blood. So hemoglobin can be used to transport oxygen around the body of animals. Proteins can also be used to make hair and nails, and the protein that is used to make hair is called keratin. Proteins are also needed for growth, and they are used to repair damaged parts of the body. So in general, proteins are essential for healing. Proteins are also needed to make antibodies which help us fight infections such as bacterial infections and viral infections. Our next essential chemicals are lipids. So lipids are also known as fats. They are made up of 4 molecules that are joined together, 1 glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acid chains. And the constituent elements of lipids are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. In this diagram, we can see the structure of glycerol and the structure of a fatty acid molecule. And we can also see the structure of a fat molecule. And as we have mentioned, a fat molecule or a lipid molecule is made up of glycerol and 3 fatty acid molecules or 3 fatty acid chains. So this is the structure of a lipid molecule. Moving on to the functions of lipids. Lipids provide energy. They provide 2 times more energy than carbohydrates, but cells use carbohydrates first before they use fats as a source of energy. So fats can also be used as energy stores, and the fat under the skin insulates the body. It helps to keep the body warm. So the fat under the skin is known as adipose tissue. Our next essential chemicals are nucleic acids. So nucleic acids are the chemicals that make up our genes and our chromosomes. They are the materials that we inherit from our parents, and they are the same materials that we pass on to our children. And these materials determine our characteristics, for example, eye color. Examples of nucleic acids are DNA and RNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. So DNA is made up of two strands that are joined together to form a spiral, and RNA is just a single strand. In this diagram, we can see part of a DNA molecule, which is made up of two strands. So this is one strand and this is the other strand, and they are joined together, and these strands form a spiral. We have come to the end of our session. So we have covered 5 chemicals that are essential for life. We looked at water, and we mentioned that water is essential for life. Water lubricates moving parts, and water is a solvent for many chemical reactions. We also looked at proteins, and we mentioned that proteins are essential for building our body, and they are essential for the healing process. We also looked at carbohydrates, and we mentioned that they provide energy. And we also looked at lipids, and we mentioned that lipids provide 2 times more energy than carbohydrates, and that lipids help to insulate the body. They help to keep the body warm. And lastly, we talked about nucleic acids, and we mentioned that nucleic acids are the chemicals that we inherit from our parents, and they are the chemicals that determine our characteristics. So if you want to gather more information on this topic, I highly recommend that you read the biology course book. It is a great book. So thank you guys for watching until the end.